the teachers in general need to understand the amount that their money is being used to support the far left Democrats and also left of center Republicans today, and not necessarily what the people they're voting for. I think I think the teachers union's primary goal today, based on the behavior that I've seen of them, is to be a left-wing liberal activist.
The Tennessee Education Association, or the TEA for short, is the state's largest teachers union. The TEA is the state affiliate for the National Education Association. According to the group's website, members believe in democracy, equal opportunity, and a just society. The TEA's website goes on to say that the group's primary mission, quote, is to protect and advocate for our students, our profession, and our members to create great public schools that prepare everyone for success in a global democracy, unquote. But throughout the past several years, Tennessee Watchdog has corresponded with many people, off record, some who are teachers, some who are not, who say the TEA lives up to none of those standards and is actually a toxic influence in the state of Tennessee. Those people said they were afraid to go on record out of fear the TEA would retaliate in one form or another. But for the first time, Tennessee Watchdog has interviewed teachers who will speak on the record. These teachers once belonged to the TEA, and they say the group's values are completely out of sync with those of most Tennesseans. Tennessee, as you may well know, is a red state politically, full of conservative, right-of-center voters. Essentially, the teachers in this video describe the TEA as nothing more than a bunch of hacks who fight for politically progressive causes and care little for their students' best interests. It's important to note that Tennessee Watchdog made several attempts to interview the TEA's top officials for comment, including members of the group's media relations team. Tennessee Watchdog even contacted Jim Rye, the TEA's chief lobbyist, by phone and by text. No one at the TEA returned our requests for an interview.
Okay, my name is Kyle Mallory. I'm a teacher at Stewart County High School. I've been teaching around 10 years. I've got several awards. I'm a Tennessee Teacher of the Year through the VFW and several regional awards. Also a Tennessee Advocate of the Year through Professional Education of Tennessee. Most of my colleagues are in the Tennessee Education Association. However, many of them have actually left the TEA. and the teachers union. Many of them are upset about their politics.
Well, politically, the TEA, of course, always promotes Democratic candidates. They don't like Republicans. They promote a social agenda, particularly promote homosexuality. When I studied the philosophy and knew what they were doing, and I started teaching at the university, I was the head of teacher education, the student teaching program, and I didn't want my students to be forced to join a union where they had conscientious objections to it. Many of the universities in Tennessee require their students to join TEA.
I've had a lot of dealings with the TEA, especially on the political side, opposing them. You got to remember, this is Tennessee, and we're a red state, and a lot of teachers are not left to center. The teachers union, because we have two different organizations in Tennessee now, but the teachers union is left to center. They support Democrats. Historically have, always. And if you're a member of an affiliate organization like the TEA, that also means that you are giving money to the NEA, and which is historically Democrat has given a lot of money to even Hillary Clinton, as Tennessee Watchdog has brought out in other issues.
I was a member, roughly close to 20 years, and never did read the magazines or anything. And a fellow teacher of mine said, you need to read what your dues are going to, what you're into. And I started reading, what my dues, basically what I was promoting, Gay History Month, all the liberal agenda, pro-choice, stuff like that. And locally one day we had a meeting. We was going to go, about insurance here locally. And our local, BCEA, which was a branch of the Tennessee Education Association, they wanted to keep the current insurance. And instead of going to the state of Tennessee, we had Blue Cross, and it was Cadillac policy. And our director of schools said, can't afford it. He said, here's what we'll do. If you will go to the state plan, you will get a $1,900 built into your salary. So we had a meeting, the local association, Bradley County Education Association, had a meeting, and I stood up and I asked, I said, let's poll our members. And I was shouted down about the leadership, about that. I said, let's just poll, see what our members want. So they shouted me down, so I sat down, and a friend of mine, J.C. Bowman, was sitting by me. I said, find me something. I'm out of this association now. If it can't be Democratic, I don't want to be in it.
I think there's I've got things kind of put into 4 different groups of teachers. One of those are teachers that have been around for a long time, and the TEA maybe helped them get out of a tight spot, actually did their job, and or maybe they saw a friend being abused by administration or not doing the right thing. The TEA came to their aid, and they're forever loyal to that situation, despite their politics. I know one example of a teacher that is as conservative or more as conservative as I am, but has remained a member of the TEA because she's loyal to them. I think, and then there's another group of teachers that are true blue Democrats, liberals, and their thought process is pulling their money together for a good liberal cause is effective. Then there's teachers like myself that belong to other organizations, and that number's growing. Then I think there's the other group of teachers that really don't understand what that extra $4 or even $450 a month is, or excuse me, $450 a year that the teachers union collect really is doing, and providing that $20 some odd million to Hillary Clinton and Democratic congressional leaders and for the NEA and the paying for the lobbyists and the other political operatives that the TEA employs. That's in the teachers union. I mean, it's very they are effective at trying to elect Democrats, and at this point in Tennessee, you're left of center Republicans.
But you just basically a teacher that's not a very good teacher, which fellow teachers know and students know. I mean, if they're in the union, they're not going to. Usually local school boards just not going to mess with them because they do have high dollar lawyers.
Well, one of the things I found in the teachers union is that most teachers unions, as almost all teachers or all unions, have payroll deductions, and to cut off that payroll deduction is sometimes a paperwork nightmare for some teachers. So since they can't figure out or are given a hard time about leaving the TEA and getting rid of their payroll deductions, they just finally give up and just stay with the TEA or other unions, and so that's very difficult. I know the payroll deduction has been fought within our legislature for years, and back when it first began, their number one objective was to take care of teachers. But the teachers unions, it doesn't appear that that's their number one objective. It's more like raising money and being a Democratic operative or a wing of the Democratic Party. That when I've been in Legislative Plaza, like with job shadowing with kids or taking kids on Capitol trips, or I've been on a snow day or things like that, the number of teachers that are also there and/or TEA members that do lobby. Also, when the fight was, and I call it the fight 7 years ago between the state legislature and the TEA, the number of school buses that were employed to get teachers, that 5,000 teachers union lobby, to Nashville. I thought that it was inappropriate for a school systems to use school buses the way they did for a politically motivated event.
You talk to them, just a lot of them are scared, to leave because they think they're not going to be covered, as far as lawyer-wise, job security and things of that nature. They just overlook it. They just don't care. And I've always been the one, that always believe, which you can't do, which they take away your rights, that, you ought to be able to not have to join all three. If you want to join a local association and a state association, not the national, you ought to be able to do that, but you can't do that, and I don't feel like that's right. Because they know that they know if that would happen, that no one would be in the NEA. Now, TEA, you can change things, but on the national level, you're not going to be able to.
Well, the TEA has been a 100% nearly unanimous force in pursuit of electing liberals. And whether those liberals tend to be mostly in the years past on the Democrat side, and now, unfortunately, have been supporting more and more moderate Republicans. I've always been opposed by TEA in every election that I've ever had, and kind of wear that as a badge of courage. But just like in the case of most unions, the majority of the job of a union is to protect those who contribute the least to the productive means that they're involved with, in my opinion. So the teachers are not members of the TEA fundamentally because of their allegiance to the liberal ideology, I think, of the NEA or the TEA, but they're simply users of the services members of TEA simply because of, I think, false statements that have either been told to them directly or indirectly by other teachers that if you're going to teach, you need to be a part of TEA. Ultimately, I would encourage teachers to look at other organizations that are available, such as PET and others here in the state of Tennessee, if they're seeking out those, again, legal counseling or other protections associated with the teaching profession. There are a lot of other options other than TEA, and I would encourage teachers to look at those. But what we can see is that the stranglehold that the TEA has had on education for years is continuing to diminish more and more and more each year. And ultimately, that's a goal for me personally, and I think a goal generally for most Republicans in the legislature. One thing I would say is that legislators all across the state of Tennessee, and I'm sure in lots of other places, are told you cannot be elected if you don't have the support of teachers and the TEA or some other, teachers union in your district. And I would purport that that is definitely not true. And I would say this, speaking about that as well, is that teachers don't vote as this block, this demographically isolated block. They don't all vote for the TEA endorsed legislator. Well, most outrageous thing that I've seen them do is oppose, specific pieces of legislation, run ads against me and others, in our elections. I can think of a specific person who still works for TEA who would come into my office, into this office, and would threaten me as a lawmaker that if I did not vote a certain way, that they were going to make sure that I was thrown out during my next election. And I'll have to report that for the last 4 times, although they've tried, TEA has not had an adverse impact on my reelection or my initial election. I opposed initially a 14-year Democrat incumbent who was a member of the TEA and who was a staunch advocate for the TEA. And the TEA went after me with all they had in 2010. They did the same thing when this particular person that I ran against in 2010 ran against me again in 2012 to recapture the seat. TEA again, just full-blown attack on me, and I still was victorious in that campaign. My third, re-election, not so much. And then this last time around, the TEA yet again tried to come after me, sent a couple pieces of mail, and I actually have a copy of that I can show you, and it's been unsuccessful. When I hear school teachers or specifically administrators talk about their opposition to vouchers, and we have TEA teachers and affiliates that come up and tell us the evils of vouchers each and every year. What I consistently hear them say is, you're going to take money away from my school system. You're going to take teachers away from my school system. Mm-hmm. You're going to take power away from my school system. What I have yet to hear to this point is one of these TEA representatives say, you're going to take kids away from us. And I think that's indicative. I think that tells a lot. What is TEA's purpose? What is TEA's motive? What's their main goal? In my opinion, it's self-preservation, it's money, it's the protection of the adults involved in the education process. Very little, if any, concern is ever given to the kids that they're chartered with actually educating.
As Tennessee Watchdog has previously reported, the NEA takes union dues for its largest program, the Unified Staff Service Program, or UNISERV for short. This program, which uses inflammatory Saul Alinsky tactics, takes in $70 million a year, with 20% of that money coming from union dues. UNISERV workers conduct collective bargaining and other negotiations on behalf of union members, but they also train locals in political activism and community organizing. The TEA has 21 UNISERV agents spread around 19 regions of Tennessee. The NEA reportedly uses UNISERV members to intimidate school administrators and to control school board members. And they teach Alinsky tactics that heighten conflict as a way to achieve their goals. The Wall Street Journal called these UNISERV operatives, quote, an army of paid political organizers and lobbyists, unquote. The Washington Times, meanwhile, said UNISERV officers have tremendous clout over Democratic Party politics. UNISERV members make it a high priority to get contract language that maximizes the union's income stream. That money, of course, comes from taxpayers. Other groups in Tennessee involved in public education use Alinsky tactics. In Williamson County, there's a group called Williamson Strong. Many people say that group is a front for unions to smear and slander local conservatives. Williamson Strong, some say, has bullied several critics into silence. The Strong Schools movement also exists in Sumner County, and one local journalist who covered them, Neil Siders, said group members created a website to ridicule him and his family with what he called, quote, nasty sexual things, unquote. That same year, the Tennessean credited Strong Schools with influencing county commissioners to raise property taxes an additional 23%. Both groups deny having any ties to the NEA, but the NEA's website goes into great detail about how members like to use the term strong schools, strong communities to push for higher taxes.
Stops there. They should not be into agendas, political agendas whatsoever. It has nothing to do with teaching kids.
The connections to Williamson Strong and other organizations that are, community organizer type organizations that have roots that run all the way back to the Obamas and their administration. This is, no one should think at all that the TEA is an altruistic entity that really is only out there for teachers. No, they're part of a network of rabid liberals that have very, very bad intentions for our kids and for our society. And we should never, never forget that. Just go look at some point the list of things that the NEA supports, and by default, that means that the TEA does as well, because they are a networked group with the NEA. And I think a lot of people would be shocked to see the things that the NEA supports, and again, by default, the TEA then also supports.